Hey guys, this is Kalie from Expats Everywhere. I bumped into Brittney, who's from the United States, and we got to talking about how she used to live in Afghanistan and I used to live in Saudi Arabia. We talked about what it was like being a woman there as an expat, and then also just talking to the locals and how they felt as women. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. All right, so Brittney, you used to live in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
What did you wear to work?
So I was a PE teacher, so I typically wore pants and then a skirt over top of that. And then because I was a PE teacher, they allowed me to wear a short sleeve t-shirt, but it got really cold, so I wore long sleeves as well.
Oh, it got cold there.
You're really cold.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, and then in
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, we had to wear long skirts all the way down to our ankles or very flowy pants.
Yeah.
And then 3/4 sleeves, so either 3/4 to long sleeve. That's what we had to work in.
Yeah, the other teachers were similar.
Similar to
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Like baggier pants and then like a dress sometimes over top, or like the long tunic shirts that covered your butt. And
Yeah, same thing with us. Like you couldn't have
Front.
anything tight around your butt.
Yes,
Pretty much.
yeah.
It had to be like flowy
Any
there.
detail, yeah, exactly.
And then, of course, you couldn't have anything like low cut or anything
Right,
that was
right.
like inappropriate there. So oftentimes I would wear, like, I had like a normal top from the States that was short sleeve, and I just had like a black long sleeve. So I put
Underneath,
black, underneath, and then put that over. So I was always like covered like up to here and down to there. So I wore a lot of like undershirts that way.
Yeah. Yeah, we did a lot of layers.
Yeah.
A lot of layers, even when it was hot.
So then your students, did they wear the same thing?
I mean, our younger students, it was less of a situation because most things are okay when you're younger. But as they got older, a lot of the girls would wear, like, we had a dress code of like long tunic length shirts and pants that preferably were not tight, like jeggings and stuff couldn't be worn. But even our high school, like, Afghan students would push the envelope just like a normal high schooler does. So
Yeah.
that was interesting to see, though, because you'd think they wouldn't, but they're normal teenagers. So
Right.
yeah.
And I was at university, so we did have a dress code. They had to wear skirts. The girls had to wear skirts down to their ankles, and they had to wear long sleeve shirts. So they had to be completely covered
fully.
Yeah, fully. Even though at the university, like, you go into the women's side, and there's no men there, but still, you have to be completely covered.
Yeah.
Even though there's no men.
Yeah. Yeah, there were men on campus for us, but because we're in a closed community, I felt like we had a lot more leeway when we were on the, like, compound than we did, like, when we were outside. Now, if we were to go, like, outside of the school, we had to be, like, full abaya, like the long sleeve, flowy, you know.
Like the big black
Chador.
robe.
Yeah, Yeah, the big black robe. Yeah.
So what is a chador?
A chador is like a scarf. It's a scarf, yeah.
cover
They
your
just, like,
hair?
wrap around, yeah.
And your face, or just your hair?
Just the hair.
Okay.
But Afghan women would wear the ones that were, like, tight around the face sometimes. I don't know what those are called, though.
I don't know, because in Saudi we had the abaya, like the black robe, and then we had a hijab, which is covered at the hair,
similar,
and
yeah,
then
same.
niqab, which covers
The whole
face
thing.
besides the
Okay,
eyes.
yeah. I mean, they have the burqa in Afghanistan where it's like you can't even, the eyes are, you
That's
can't even
covered
see
as
the
well.
eye. Yeah.
Did you see
cover
that a lot?
everything. Out.
Out,
Yeah,
yeah.
out. The women, if they were, like, walking the street, they definitely had that on.
In Saudi,
Most
some of
women.
the women would cover, like, their face, but where we were, everyone covered, like, their just their face from the nose down. So all you could see were
All
eyes.
the women.
Yeah,
wow.
all the women in the city.
Did you have to do that?
No.
Okay.
I didn't. So when I went out, I wore the abaya, and then it was optional, really, if we wanted to cover our hair. But, you know, you'd kind of stick out if you didn't.
Right.
Even if you do, like, because generally, like, they don't have much color. A lot of it is just black. So if, like, I wanted to wear a pink scarf, yes, I'm covering my hair, everyone's going to know.
Right.
Like, oh, that's
super
a foreigner.
noticeable. Yeah.
So I would cover my hair being out. Like, when we would get into the grocery store, generally, like, I would pull it off and just kind of keep the scarf around until I was out. So if I was in an establishment, generally I would
Keep
pull
it
down.
on. Yeah.
Yeah. Are the women really into fashion there?
Kind of. It has to do, I think, more with, like, what was available to them. I didn't see a lot of like women outside the compound, what they had on underneath, because even some of the Afghan women working at our school would wear the whole thing the whole day.
They'd stay in it. They wouldn't.
Like they would like. I mean, like the women in the front office who were like interacting with a lot of people, they needed to like keep their look formal and more conservative. So I didn't really see what they were wearing, but I think for the most, like even their abayas were like decorative.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like
were they
nicer.
Like colors?
Yeah, like ours were plain black because we didn't want to stand out, but like some of them had like colorful ones that they would wear under their, whole thing. So, like, what about in Saudi? What about the women in Saudi?
The women love their fashion there. And just going off what you were saying, that some of the women in Afghanistan, like, they would have, like, colorful abayas and stuff. It depends on what city you're in Saudi Arabia. The more conservative ones, they'll be, like, all black. No decorations or anything. Maybe a little bit. Like, mine was black with a little bit of gray. And that was, decorative. But then you go to some of the other, like, a little more non-traditional cities, like Jeddah, for example, and then you'll see the colorful abayas
like
and things like that. So I think where we were, you were just covered generally in a black type abaya, but the women love their fashion there. They get really dressed up underneath, and I think I used to always wonder, like, how does their hair look so good? Because they're, like they're
like covering it up.
Yes, and then they come and their hair like looks perfect, and I'm like, if I had to wear that, like my hair would just be matted to like my forehead or something. So like true. It would just look so bad, but somehow they have figured out how to make their hair look good.
System, yeah. I don't know how they do it.
So in Saudi, when you go to like parties, it's always separate. Men and women are always separate.
Yeah, same in Afghanistan, yeah.
Okay, so the parties were a big deal, and I think it was almost like to show how much money you had. So you would go to these parties, and the women would, like, you'd be super dressed up.
Yeah.
We even had, like, stuff through the university, and all of the Saudi women were always, like, really dolled up. And, like, all the expats were like, okay, I've got, like, my makeup on, and, like, a little skirt or something. But, like, they were, like, all dolled up. And I guess it's their chance to just, like, show their fashion, and it gives them that creativity, but it's only among women. Yeah.
I think it was similar. I didn't have a chance to go to, like, any big events while I was in Afghanistan, but from what I hear, like, at the weddings, the women would go, like, all out for how they looked, because they're all like in one room together and all the men are in the other room. So from what I understood, like they went like full sparkly abaya, colorful, all the, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So
it was the same in Saudi. The weddings were the same. It's like they're getting married, but they're separate.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So they get all dressed up and they all do their own thing. And then in Saudi, they will have like all of the women will put everything on besides the bride. Yeah. And then the groom will come over, and so he can see his bride.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but all the other women are
so they get
covered.
A chance to see. Yeah.
But other than that, it's like a separate party.
Yeah. Two different. Yeah, that's just like dancing over here and dancing over here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big cultural thing, and I say mainly in the Middle East that you would have the different. You'd go to someone's house for like a party, but the women are in this area and the men are in this area. And I mean, in Saudi, a lot of times you don't mingle so much with other families. It's all like big family gatherings. So it's your cousins and your second cousins, and it's a lot of people, but they're pretty much like related to you. That's who you hang out with.
Yeah, same, I think. I will say this, though, like, Afghan people are so hospitable. Like, they love to have people over, and, like, they'll treat you like kings and queens when you do come over. I think it's partly, like, how they want to look, but I think in general they're just, like, a really hospitable, friendly people group, but you don't really get to see that, like, anywhere, unless you live there. Because otherwise, you're just, like, hearing and seeing stuff on the news. So, I think I was kind of shocked to see how like kind and like open and warm they were.
Yeah, because we're not really exposed to that, right?
I mean, exactly.
I think it's kind of a mixed bag in Saudi. You have some who want to be really hospitable and are like really nice, but then you have others who I think are, I don't know, they're just not sure about you, so they'd rather just keep their distance.
Yeah,
I don't know, which is fine. But it's a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, it's also Afghanistan's like an honor culture. So like if you like, I think in that sense they want to look like honorable and look good to the population outside. So I think that's why they make sure that you're treated right when you like are a guest at their house or something like that. Yeah.
What do the women think about having to be covered up in Afghanistan?
I feel like they have more of a negative view on it, just because some of them are more conservative than others, and a lot of that is controlled by like their family and like how conservative of Muslim they are and things like that. But a lot of it is forced because of the Taliban, obviously. But I don't know. My students were always like, why do we have to dress like that? Had that kind of sense. I didn't really have that conversation that much with like an adult, but my students were like against it. And some of them, their parents had lived in Afghanistan before the Taliban and like had dressed, like classic 70s style. Like it was a totally different place then. And I think that probably would be hard to go from that, like having way more freedom in that to having to cover up a lot. What about in Saudi?
It was mixed as well in Saudi. I taught like 18, 19-year-olds around that age, and you would have women who would say, no, we should cover up, like it's better for us, it keeps us safe, things like that. But then you have other women who are like, why do I have to cover up? And then the guys can just walk around and whatever they want. So the two extremes, and then it kind of in between, I guess the ones that were just like, it is what it is. This is what my father tells me to do, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah, a lot of that
But you did have the rebellious ones too that, rebellious in the sense that they voiced how they didn't like it, but they still did it. Like you never saw anyone where I was rebelling like and walking around without an abaya.
No. Yeah, never.
Because
they put them in danger.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know in Saudi.
In Saudi, it's not technically like a country
like
law,
a law. Yeah.
But it's like the religious police law.
Yeah. Right.
So the religious police could do or say something, but it's not like a country law. So there's that weird, you have to, but do you have to kind of thing?
Right.
But there's such a culture of like what my father says is how it should be. So if my father's telling me you need to cover up, then
I'm going to cover up. Right.
And I had one student who her father was from Saudi Arabia and her mother was from Syria, and the father held a bit more of a little more liberal type of view. So like a lot of women, when you would go into the mall, they would cover their face.
Stay covered,
But she would walk into the mall and she would take off her face covering.
Yeah.
And her father was okay with it, which is why she was able to do it.
Right.
So a lot of it came from the patriarch of the family.
Right.
Are the restaurants like separate there, like having separate rooms? Does that make sense? Because in Saudi, the restaurants, like you would go in and most restaurants are separate rooms because you go in with your family and then you go into the separate rooms, or there's some sort of curtain or something that covers, because then the women, they're just with their family and they can take everything off.
Yeah.
As opposed to sitting in an open restaurant.
Right.
Like even McDonald's had
was
like
separate.
A curtain.
Yeah.
So you'd sit at your booth and there was a curtain. Did you have anything like that? Restaurants have?
It's hard for me to like give a perspective on the local restaurants because we really didn't go to local. Like we had like certain places that we were allowed to go just because of safety. Like in the restaurants that we went to, everyone could sit together. Like it wasn't a big deal. We were allowed to take off our, chadors and sit normally. But we were at like places that had more expats in them, so it was like not really the Afghan culture, it was more like the culture of the restaurant we were at. So everywhere I went, it was okay for us to sit together. Even we did go to a couple local ones and we were able to sit with like our male teachers, but we still kept everything on when we were at those places, just out of respect and like not feeling uncomfortable myself, because when I was in public, like I never wanted to take anything, like I didn't want to take off my scarf, I didn't want to like draw any attention, and that was for my own benefit, because you'd get stared at and feel uncomfortable and things like that. So Did you ever feel uncomfortable?
Not really. Okay. But we didn't walk really anywhere. Okay. We had drivers. So like when we go to the store or the mall, they'd be on our compound, we'd jump in the car, and then we'd go, you know. And so not getting stared at that much because of and then it is separate, like when you go into like even Starbucks, for example. Starbucks has like a family side and a single men side. Oh, okay. So like if you're single male, you have to go in this one entrance and it's completely blocked off. If you're a family or like married, so like my husband and I could go into the family side because we're technically a family, so you don't have to have kids or anything. You go into that side. He would not have been allowed to walk in that side without me, but because we're married, we would walk in. Okay. You order your Starbucks drink and then you go behind like these like curtain areas, and then at that point you can take anything off that you wanted there because you know the curtain's closed, so you know that there's someone behind there. And it's very private like that.
There was no Starbucks in Afghanistan or McDonald's, so I can't really. It probably would be like that if they had McDonald's, but they had some places that like claimed that they were like Subway or McDonald's, but they weren't.
That's funny. Did you find that the older students were attracted to a certain type of look? Or?
I mean, I think the kids were like typical high schoolers. Like you could tell like the kind of boy they might like, even in the Afghan culture, because our boys at our school were pretty like with the times as far as like haircut. Like they're big into hair. All the men had like fresh cuts, you know, like all the soccer players, they had the stripes and everything. So I think our girls liked that. I mean, they didn't talk to me a lot about it, but yeah, I don't know about older women. I never really had that conversation with any older women as far as what they find attractive. Yeah.
And I mean, for Saudis, the university level, it was mixed. I mean, I think they're just like anyone else around the world. Like, you have certain preferences that you like, and it might be different than your friend. They think this looks better. They're interested in brown eyes or light eyes, or you know. So it was. I mean, it wasn't like a certain
pretty
look.
Normal.
That they were attracted to. But obviously, Saudis, the women, you know, their father chooses who they marry. Right. So I think that because of that, they don't really say, "Oh, I want a boy with blue eyes" or something. And especially in that area, that's just not very common anyway. They're most likely going to marry a Saudi or someone in the Middle East. So I think that they know that look is generally the same type of skin color, same type of hair color, same type of eye color. So they just don't seem to be too picky about that.
Yeah, I think it's the same. I mean, all the marriages are arranged. My students loved hearing like love stories. Like they asked the story of like, cause at the time I was dating my husband, who was still in the US, and they like wanted to hear all about him once they found out about him. And like, they love the love story because I think it's so uncommon cause everything's arranged. So, I thought that was interesting. That
is interesting. Yeah.
And kind of sad.
And kind of sad. Yeah, it is. I mean, the same thing obviously in Saudi, and again, mixed bag on. Some women are like, I want to choose who I want to marry, and others are like,
true.
No, but my father does a good job at it, and you know they're fine with it. So there's really a mix right now, and I think honestly, there's a big with the generation that I taught, the 18, 19-year-olds, there's a big shift to their parents because they are exposed to way more having technology. So they've got smartphones and they watch like programs from all around the world and they see that this is how it is outside. And like they want that. They want that type of freedom. So I think it'll be interesting to see when these women get married and have kids, how their husbands will what they will do with their daughters, like what they will allow them to do or not allow them to do. Like, I think there's going to be a little more freedom that will happen.
Yeah, I don't know about Afghanistan. I guess it depends on like where the country goes, how the country does in the next few years.
Well, guys, that was just a little bit about what it's like being an expat woman in Afghanistan and in Saudi Arabia, and then as expat women talking to local women and their perspective on what it's like having to wear the abayas and what it's like just being a woman in general in the Middle East. If you want to know more, if you want us to share more about our experience about being a woman in Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia, write in the comments below, ask questions, and we'll put out another video for you.